All right, how you doing, everybody? Good to see everyone here. We're going to get started in just a couple of moments. I always like to give people a little bit of time to settle in and allow any people who are just a couple of minutes behind to arrive. So we will begin at 2 minutes past the hour. So if anyone needs to, I don't know, make a cup of tea, make yourself comfortable, get settled in, and we will begin in, well, 1 minute from now. Thanks, everyone, for being with us. All right, let's get things started. So, like I said, welcome everybody. Good to see you all here. This is our two-part donor and donation management academy course, monday.com. My name is Alex. I can see a lot of folks that I've already worked with in the past, so welcome back. And I can see a few new names, so it's nice to connect with you for the first time. We can get to know each other a bit over the course of the next 2 weeks. We're going to be working together today for 60 minutes and next week for 60 minutes. And the way I divided up this course, roughly speaking, today we're focusing on donors. Next week, we're focusing on donations. Now, of course, you can't have one without the other, but they do involve slightly different bits of work. And the way that our template that we'll work on today has been designed also kind of separates them out. And I think there are some big advantages of that. So hopefully that'll all become clear as we work our way through the course this week and next. So let me quickly run through my agenda for today. So we're all on the same page and everyone knows what to expect. We'll do intros first of all. For the first time in a couple of sessions, we're a more manageable group. I've had some really massive groups in the last couple of weeks, so we haven't been able to do, in-depth one-on-one introductions. So I can introduce myself. I'll also introduce money.com nonprofit program, and it'll also be great to hear from some of you folks, where in the world you are, what kind of work you're doing, how important donors are for you, that kind of thing. If you are already on the nonprofit program, that's amazing. But if not, I do want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to join us. In one word, free. Like, it's pretty cool. You want to get that access for free if you possibly can. So I'll explain how you can apply and what you need to do. It should be a fairly straightforward process. And then I've got a couple of slides just to kind of get us warmed up around the way we want to work with donors. And I designed these slides almost like agnostic to the technology. Like, if we had the optimal way of being able to work with our donors, what would we want to be able to do? And then we'll see how we can kind of bring that into monday.com. And like I said, we already have a donor management template. I'll show you where you can find it, how you can download it. It's free and it's a good template, but it's not going to be the perfect fit for your organization, right? Every organization has their own unique challenges. So I'm going to walk you through the way the template was designed, but I'll also show you how you can start customizing it and making changes to it. Almost everything in this template is customizable. If you've worked on monday.com at all, you'll know that, but if you are brand new, I want to show you just how easy it is. And then we will actually upload some donor information. I think more than almost any of the other use cases, there's a very good chance you'll already have a list of donors somewhere and you'll want them to be in Monday, one way or another. So I'll show you a couple of different options there, give you some tips around, improving your data and cleaning up your data. And then we can look at ways that we can start to reach out to our donors automatically, start to build those relationships with our donors, and how we can actually schedule things with our donors, activities where we can actually meet them face to face or on the phone, but more than just a kind of automated email. You can actually schedule things. And those are so valuable to build those relationships and to build up a rapport with your donors. And without a system behind you to support you, it's almost impossible. As soon as you get more than about 10 people on your books, you can't individually meet every single person without some clear and organized structure of planning and running all those kinds of meetings. So as you can see, our main focus today is donors. Like I said, next week we'll look at the finances a bit more and how we can kind of connect the two together. So hope everyone's looking forward to this. And I'll go first with a quick intro for those of you who don't yet know me. I'm Alex or Alexander. I've been working at Monday for 3.5 years in this role, helping nonprofits. We are up to 27,000 active nonprofits, which is pretty amazing. And so my work is at scale, trying to build these courses and templates and things that can reach as many nonprofits as possible to help them be active and successful on the platform. If you have ideas for us, please always feel free to reach out. Before this, I worked in a lot of different roles, but often connected to the nonprofit world one way or another. So I say this before every session, but it really is true. I believe nonprofits are changing the world for the better. There's some amazing work being done, and I'd love to hear about some of that work in just a moment. But I also know that there's a lot of challenges people at nonprofits face. And I think Monday.com can really help overcome a lot of those challenges. And yeah, it's my job to show you how. And in a past life, for this, I worked as a tour guide for many, many years. I've led tours in several different countries. So if anybody wants to plan their next weekend trip to Paris, you can also ask me about that. Okay, that's enough about me. What I would love to do now is hear from some of you folks. Nobody needs to have prepared anything special or fancy, but if you're able to, unmute yourself and turn on your camera and just tell us a little bit about yourself and your nonprofit, that would be amazing. If anybody prefers just to leave a note in the chat for people to read, that's also totally fine. But this is one of my favorite parts of the session, to actually connect to the people doing this amazing work. It's often quite inspiring. So if there's anybody who would like to, give us a quick little glance at the work you're doing and tell us, where you're from, please, feel free, jump in, and we'll get through as many people as we can. So anybody like to go first?
I'll go. My name's Brad Wells. I work with a nonprofit in Long Beach, California called Days Long Beach, which is provides services to low-income families here in downtown Long Beach. I'm a volunteer. I'm retired. I'm a volunteer, and I enjoy it very much. Monday.com, I've been using, I attended a couple of your other discussions and signed up for the nonprofit program. 27,000 is definitely the power of free, I suspect. So,
Yeah.
and it's been really an amazing experience. I really, it's incredible that it's a free tool. I mean, with no holds barred. And so, yes, I did download the donor management system. I've been using that and making significant kind of modifications to accommodate our business, as you indicated. And it's really enabled us to maintain much closer contact with donors in a more personalized fashion, and kind of focus our attention on those that come back again and again. And we've entered into two-way communications with them, which has been a really helpful improvement. And so I'm exploring other ways to engage Monday.com with some of the other tools we use and other people. So thank you for your time and an introduction to all this.
Oh, Brad, that's amazing. I couldn't have asked for a better first person, because sounds like you're already doing great stuff with the platform, which is brilliant. Like, really happy to hear it. And yeah, if there's ways that we can take it even to the next level, I'd love to help you. But cool, really, really impressed to hear some of the stuff you've done, and yeah, would love to dive into it a bit more if we have time. So thanks, Brad. Thanks for kicking us off.
Hi, I'm Leslie Cohen. I'm based in New York, and I work with Her Health EQ. We deploy medical equipment into the developing world to address concerns like cervical cancer, breast cancer, maternal health, and heart disease. And this is our first foray onto Monday. I think we've been playing around with it for 2 or 3 weeks, and I was kind of blown away in yesterday's training session, realizing we could build things really easily, and looking forward to being approved for the nonprofit status.
Amazing. That's like in process. Do you have any issues there, or it's just
I applied
waiting?
yesterday, right after the call. So hopefully
Amazing.
soon.
Great. Cool. So yeah, fingers crossed. And there's so much you can do. And maybe that's a good point to make for everybody. Maybe you've come to this call not necessarily because donors is your thing. If there's other stuff that you're looking to manage on Monday, that's also fine. I think a lot of the skills we'll be learning in these courses are going to be transferable to other use cases. So, donors is what we're focusing on, but it can help you with other work as well instead on top of. So yeah, that's great. Yeah, and thanks, Leslie. So also sounds like really cool, important work.
Hi, everyone. Oh, you want to go first?
I was just going to go right after Leslie because I actually work with her. I thought it would be a bit easier, but hi, everyone. I'm Ambika. I also work at Her Health. I'm actually the intern for grants and fundraising and all that. So that's why I'm here to learn and hopefully get this thing going. Thank you.
Perfect. You're in the right place, Ambika. Welcome. That's excellent.
Great. Hi, I'm Haley Marcos. I work for Ronald McDonald House Charities, West Michigan. We offer families a free place to stay when they're traveling into Grand Rapids for medical treatment for their children. We've been using Monday for a while, but we primarily break it up by fundraising campaigns. So like for our golf outing, we'll have a board, and then for our spring appeal, we'll have a board. And so I'm trying to figure out a better way to organize the donors as individuals and all of the ways that we're interacting with them instead of just focusing on those single campaigns and maybe losing that connection of like, oh, we already asked them for this and this and this. So.
Okay, yeah, no, that's really, really interesting. Yeah, I think what you we can talk about it over the course of 2 weeks, but generally speaking, yeah, it's great to have that one source of truth where everybody's listed once, but then also have those project campaigns where you can drill into them a bit more and you can connect the two. So I think we can definitely be of some help there. That sounds like a good problem to have because there is a kind of a good solution there. So that's great. Thanks, Haley.
Hi, everyone. My name's Catherine. I work for the Powderhorn Park Neighborhood Association in South Minneapolis. And really small team, so I'm the executive director and just recently signed up with a nonprofit status for Monday. We have, as you've probably noticed, a lot of donations coming into our community, and I have all this data that I need help managing. Like one of my first questions, I know we're going to start with like importing data and stuff like that, but I have like so many donation platforms that I'm trying to figure out how to even just see what I have, and looking forward to learning today.
Well, I mean, I guess that's a good problem to have, right? If you've got a lot of donations and it needs to be organized, that's better than starting from nothing and not even having that. So, I mean, of course, it's also sad because I know that Minneapolis is going through some tough times, and that's probably what's motivating people to donate, but also cool that people care about your cause. So, yeah, happy to hopefully be able to try and give you some organization and stuff. Thanks, Catherine. Nice to meet you. Anyone else like to jump in? Please feel free. Just unmute yourself. You don't need to wait to be invited. It's all good. Also okay if people don't want to say hi. That's not a problem either. Last call. Anybody out there want to let us know what you're doing? Okay, no worries. We can push on. If anyone does want to leave a note in the chat, like I said, that's also great. You can also put in an email address or a LinkedIn or a website. And I can also give a little pitch now to our community space. We have a really nice group on Facebook of 3,500, almost 4,000 nonprofits. Many of you I know are already in this group, which is fabulous. But if you want to reach out to someone who is going through a similar challenge, or maybe someone who's built the solution that you're looking to build and you want to ask them questions, nonprofit people are amazing and usually very happy to help each other out. So definitely recommend everyone to join the group and share your advice and challenges with others. Alrighty, so let's start talking about donors, I guess. So as I said, I've got just a couple of slides to get us in the swing of things before we look at Monday itself. So all of this should be said with the caveat that, you know, I've worked with a lot of nonprofits who work with a lot of donors, but I'm sure that in our call today, we have a lot of experience of people working with donors as well. And if anybody wants to update my advice or add to my advice or even contradict my advice, I would love to hear that. So, you know, we can make this part of a conversation. But 3 slides that I've put together around tips when it comes to working with donors begins with personalization. I think as much as possible, if you can make those connections one-on-one, that's amazing. Now, it's not easy. It takes time, it takes resources, and we can only do so much. But again, if you've got a system like Monday.com behind you, it makes that whole thing much more simple, and you can start to understand trends and build sort of data-based reports much more easily if it's all in one place. Things like customizing the messaging is really, really easy to do in Monday, right? We can add filters to our donors board, so we can only see the donors who are based in a certain part of the country, or who are grouped around a certain interest, or who have given a certain threshold of money in the past. And then we can give them small differences in the way that we're reaching out to them. And the more we can do that, the more I think the connection will build between you and the nonprofit, you and the donor. So that's an easy place to start. Another good tip is around milestones. You know, the more you know about your donors, it's sort of a flywheel effect. The more you'll have in your database about your donors, and the more specific and more detailed your messaging can be. So if you've got access to things like people's milestones, right? Birthdays, send them a happy birthday note. You know, it could come across as cheesy if it's done the wrong way, but there's no, I would say no harm in sending someone an innocent little, how you doing? We thought of you on your birthday. Many happy returns. I would like that. Also, I think around event anniversaries. Now, these could be big sort of domain anniversaries. You know, if you are working to help clean up the environment, leverage Earth Day, right? That's going to be something which resonates with your donors. But it could also be something more personal if you know that about your donors, right? I mean, the classic example I always think of is somebody who's helping an organization that's going into a really specific, you know, for example, health challenge, okay, like a cancer research organization. The people who are likely to be donating to that organization, very good chance they've been impacted by cancer. And if you know those important dates, maybe they, you know, went into remission on they recovered from, they lost a partner on, you know, if you've got those dates and you can reach out to them, probably not going to reach out to someone on the day they lost their wife saying, hey, you want to donate to us? But if you can reach out to them saying, hey, look, we know it's an important day for you and we're thinking of you and we're working hard to make sure that other people don't have to suffer like you did. And then 6 months later, in your Giving Tuesday campaign, you're reaching out to them. You know, those things will connect together and hopefully build that relationship, that trust, and hopefully give better results when it comes to donations. And I think the bottom line, always, always, always send a thank you note. If somebody's opening up their wallet and giving you money, the least we can do is say thank you. I know that can be easy to forget or to, you know, deprioritize if you've got a lot of stuff coming in and you're trying to do it manually. But if you've got an automated system, it can just be fired out every time an automation is triggered by a donation. They can get that thank you note automatically. So why not? Next tip, 2 of 3, is around transparency. I put a light bulb here because I was listening to a podcast and it was a real light bulb moment for me where they said you need to think of donors as investors. And at first I was like, what are you talking about? Investors are giving money expecting, you know, dividends and stock increases, and they're not giving money at all for the same reasons that donors are. But they were arguing in this podcast that donors also want something in return. They want a return on investment, not financial, but they want to feel like they're giving money and it's actually doing some good. If they're just throwing money into a black hole, they're not getting anything out of it, they're going to stop that pretty quickly. So you need to try as much as possible to connect your donors to the impact you've had. And it's not always a direct line. You know, you've got a lot of bills that need paying. Probably no donor is getting super excited about paying for the electricity bill in your office. You know, it still needs to be paid. But if you can, I mean, the optimal way of doing it is look at this family who's eating a meal that they wouldn't have otherwise had. that was paid for by your $20 donation, right? Connecting the people to the donation, to the donor, that's amazing. So as much as possible drawing that line is great. And the other point, as it says on screen, is around accountability. I think that there's, in the last few years, a bit of a reputation that, you know, nonprofits are wasteful or spending money on stupid things. And I think if we can show our donors that we are accountable and that we are, you know, trustworthy with their money, that can also be very helpful. And one tip around that is yes, share when things don't work perfectly. You know, if you send a newsletter and it's just packed full of stuff that you did great, and there's never any kind of admission of challenge or failure, to me that would just not really ring true if I'm a donor. At the same time, you don't want to just tell people how much bad stuff you're doing and how many mistakes you've made. You want to find a balance. But if you were to show 4 great successes and then one thing that didn't work so well, to me, that would build a very nice, you know, open, trustworthy image of what's going on at your organization. Just as a public company needs to share all of their, you know, data, share as much as you can, you know, obviously without sharing personal things. But I think being open and transparent can really help build that rapport with your donors. And I sort of touched on this, but I think it is worth its own slide. So number 3 of 3 is around stories. Connecting your donors directly to the beneficiaries, that's what's going to kind of pull on their heartstrings and resonate with them. What we're doing most of the time in our nonprofit is helping people who don't have the voice that they, for whatever reason, should in society. And if you're able to take those stories and amplify them in really authentic ways, not, you know, spin them, but connect to the people who are being affected, or the animals, or the, you know, whatever the thing you're working on, connect their stories to your beneficiaries and do it in interesting ways. Don't be afraid to go out there and try new things. There's the story itself, there's the person telling the story, there's the person hearing the story, but there's also the way it's being told. So be innovative and see if you can, you know, try out a new social media platform, or experiment with different methods of telling these stories. You might find you're able to connect to whole demographics you didn't know previously were interested in your cause. So be bold. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, if you'll excuse the slightly old-fashioned expression. I mean, don't stop doing something that's working. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, but do be up for the challenge of experimenting with new ways of telling these stories. It can be beneficial if you happen to land on something which really works for you. Cool. So there's my 3 tips. Like I said, if anybody wants to add to those, feel free, jump into the chat and we can expand further. Speaking of the chat, I want to say hi to Deanna from Metro Detroit Sled Hockey. How you doing? Welcome back. And Lorraine, how are you doing with the Women's Money Matters organization? She's the Operations and Process Manager. You can read a bit more about the stuff she's doing in the chat. So thank you very much, both of you, for saying hi down there. All right, we're not up to session 2 just yet. We're now going to look at Monday.com itself. Actually, you know what? I will actually just start by giving a very quick pitch and explaining how you can apply to join the nonprofit program, because I think this is kind of the foundation of it all. So if you're not yet on the program, I definitely recommend you visit this page, monday.com/nonprofits. And then here's our eligibility tab where you can see if you think your nonprofit will fit our criteria. I'm pretty sure you will. It's a very broad program. We try to include as many nonprofits as possible. And once you've opened your monday.com account, you'll be on a 2-week free trial. Once that ends, you'll either lose access or pick a paid plan, or if you're eligible, come here. And if you click on apply now, you can fill out a very simple form, takes just a few minutes. And if found eligible, we'll move you on to the nonprofit program. What does that mean? Concretely, it means you get 10 free seats, meaning you and 9 colleagues for free. They pay nothing. We don't ask for a deposit or a credit card or anything. If you're a bigger organization, you want to buy more seats or upgrade, you can get a discount on either of those. And I should also point out, Monday.com now has 4 products. Monday Work Management, perfect for managing perfect for managing projects and tasks and that kind of thing. Monday Dev, which is more of a kind of product development. So not maybe as relevant for nonprofits. Monday CRM, which is perfect for managing donors, but also grant providers or volunteers or beneficiaries. And Monday Service, which is like a ticketing app. So if you are a nonprofit that takes requests for things and you then, either services or products or goods, distribute them, Monday Service may also be relevant. All 4 of those products come with this deal. So 10 free seats. Theoretically, they could be 10 different people. So although it says 10 here, arguably it could even be 40 free seats, which is pretty amazing. If you have questions about the products or about what we offer, you can find out more information on this page. There's also other free resources to help you get started. Just like this course, there are others. So yeah, monday.com/nonprofits is kind of your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what we're offering. And if you have questions, you can also let me know in the chat. But I wanted to start off with the high level, make sure everybody knows about this because yeah, this is like the gateway to it all. If you can get the free access, the rest you can figure out yourself or with me or many other ways. But I wanted to make sure you at least know how to get in the door. So once we are in the door, welcome to monday.com. So what I'm looking at here is Monday's CRM, as you can see up in the top left. If you are working in a different product, then you can come to the product switcher here with the 9 dots and you can switch between different products. The products are all built on the same foundation, right? They look the same and everything's integrated and connected. It's easy to move things between products. It might say a message when you first start a new product, like start a free trial. You don't need to worry about that. If you're on the nonprofit program, you're going to have access even when this trial ends. So just wanted to point that out. And then once I'm in the CRM, I've got here my demonstration workspace. Workspaces are just like your highest level kind of organizational tool. Within a workspace, you can have folders. So I've already got one folder here for managing my grants. And what I'm going to suggest is that we add another folder here to manage our donors. Donors and grants are quite different in the way you're going to be working on them. If anybody wants to learn how to manage grants, I have a separate template and a separate course on that. But for managing for managing donors, I'm going to click on the plus here. I could build something out from scratch. I could adapt the Monday CRM boards, which are really designed for sales. I could build something myself in AI, but we have already got a template. So what I'm going to suggest is we come down to the template center. While you're here, there are dozens of other cool templates. All of them are available for free. Download as many as you want, as many times as you want from any category. But in the nonprofit category, we're going to start by looking at this guy, donor management. So this is the one I recommend. And to download it, we just click here on Use Template. It'll take just a second to build up the boards, and the boards are going to be full of dummy data, right? Stuff that's not real. And of course, you can delete that stuff, but I think it is helpful just to see how it looks with some made up names in there to begin with. Very soon we can upload some slightly less made up data, which will have some donations and stuff attached to it as well. All right, let's see, it shouldn't take too long. There we go, beautiful. So over here on the left-hand side, you can see all of the different elements that make up this template. What I like to do is start with a very quick kind of high-level overview going through each of the elements. And then, as I said earlier, we'll focus mostly on this board, the donors board for today. So the donors board, high level, first of all, is like your CRM, right? This is your master list, one-stop shop where every donor appears just one time, even if they've joined different campaigns, the golf tournament, and some other fundraiser. Here, you would only have them listed once. And we've got some basic information about them, their status, their email, their phone number. You can, of course, add more to this if you want to. And then it connects to the donations board. And on the donations board, this is where we list the individual times that they gave money. So here you can see some people appear more than once. That's because Leilani, for example, is given 3 different amounts on 3 different dates. They're all connected using this connect board column back to her one entry in the donor database. So if you've got different campaigns, you could have many different campaigns on their own boards, or you could have all of the donations coming in here, and you could add for example, another column like this one to show which campaign it comes from. We can look at that in a moment. We also here have a donors activities board. Sorry that there's all these tests which really shouldn't be here. I'm going to delete those all. The donors activities board, where you can track the meetings and the calls and any other activities that you're doing with your donors. They can all appear here. And again, it's connected back to the donor, so we can see individual activities here. And if we want to see the overall work of our donor and all the things we've done with them, we can do that on the donors board. We have a fourth element, which is for the first time a dashboard. The icon is different. And dashboards don't have any of their own information living in them. All the dashboard is doing is connecting to other boards. In this case, it's connected to the 3 boards we just looked at, and it's pulling insights from them. So it's pulling out the years which we recruited or raised the most money, how we're doing compared to our fundraising goal, which of our donors are the most generous over time, how we're doing over the calendar year. All of this information comes from the board. So as soon as a new donation is added in the board, it'll instantly be updated here, right? We don't need to do anything else. These are also all customizable though. We can add up to 30 of these. Each of these graphs and charts is called a widget. You have many, many to choose from. And although it's limited to 30, you're not actually limited at all, because you can have as many dashboards as you want. You can have as many boards as you want. So if you want to have more, you can call this dashboard 1 and have another called dashboard 2. No problem. And then the final element is another different icon. It is a doc. This is pretty similar to Google Docs if you've used those in the past. You can use docs for collaborating as a team, for brainstorming ideas. All what we've done here is build a guide for using the templates. So it's got training videos, articles, links, and a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be covering today features here. But if you do have more questions about any of these step-by-step little elements, you can come and check it out here. Great, so that's it for the high-level overview. I don't know if there's any questions already, or should we jump into the donors in a bit more depth? Cool. I don't see any questions in the chat, so I'll plow on. But yeah, do pop any questions in there, or even just unmute yourself if you do have a question. Great, so let's look at ways we can customize this board. We'll start nice and simple and we'll build up from there. So initially, you'll see we've got what are called groups. We have 2 of them, potential and active. You may have a very different flow in your organization. And if you want to incorporate that into the board, you can add more groups just by clicking down here. Maybe you also want to record past donors, or maybe you record donors in different ways. Maybe these are, first-time donors. And then you have another group for the ones who've, you can organize this however you like, really, is all I'm saying here. You can also delete groups and just have everyone in big long list. That's totally fine. And you also have now a new feature which is called group by. So we can group them by certain factors. So let's say, for example, I add a new column over here to the right, which is maybe a drop-down column. A drop-down column allows me to put in certain values, and then more than one of those values can apply to each item. So if we wanted to track, for example, our donors' interest areas, I can enter them in here. Environmental issues, animal welfare, human rights, and social development. You get the idea. We can then call this column interest areas, and we can tag our donors with whichever one of these they are interested in. And of course, you can have more than one, for example, social development and animal welfare, not a problem. And then what we can do is we can group people by certain columns. Actually, I've realized that's maybe not the smartest one to use, because the drop down by its definition, people can appear in more than one group. So it's not the smartest one at all. Let's use a different example real quick. I'm going to convert this column to a status column. If you want to be able to track multiple interest areas, great. Use the drop down. If you want to demonstrate the group by feature, which is what I want to use, it's not a good one to use for that at all. What I'm going to do here is just demonstrate that you can group by, for example, a status column. So now we don't have potential and active. We can have interest areas. We can have animal welfare, environmental issues, and social development. So we can see our donors grouped that way. So you can group your donors however you like, and using group by is a really easy way to flick between the different options. If we did go down the path of having a drop-down column, and you wanted to start to sort of segment your donors, now let's turn this column back into a drop-down and add a few multiple values. So this person now is again interested in more than one thing at the same time. Another way that we could filter these is here, using the filter button. So I can say, I only want to see donors here who are interested in environmental issues. Okay, this hasn't changed the grouping, it's just filtered out those donors who don't match that criteria. And you can add filters on all sorts of things, right? We could filter our donors by the amount they've given. So I want to see environmental donors who've given more than $6,000. And, oh, sorry, that's less than. More than $6,000. And we should see $2,000. There we go. We can see Leilani is now the only donor who matches that criteria. And these filters can be saved, and then you can use that to start campaigns or reach out to donors based on any combination of the filters you've got here. Basically, if you've got the information in your board, you can use it for those kinds of things. Let's just clear those filters so we see everyone again, and we'll stick with the original structure just so it's looking the same way as it would in your template. Great. So if you did want to reach out to those donors, there's a couple of ways we could do it. And maybe the first way that I'll demonstrate is by clicking here on the update section. Next to any one of these donors, in fact, any item on any board on Monday, you'll see the update section, which is a little speech bubble icon with the plus. And because we're on Monday's CRM, we have some really cool features here. By the way, some of these features, like emails and activities, is not available in Monday Work Management. So most people on paid plans are paying extra for this feature. You're getting it for free. And if you've already started working on donors and you're working in, for example, the work management product and you want to take advantage of these, you can quite easily move things between products. Like if I wanted to move this whole folder to a different product, I could do that just with a click of a button down here. It's just like moving it to a new folder or a new workspace. Was there a question this, folks, or did somebody just come off mute by mistake? Any questions?
I do have a question. Can you just say that again? So if you move something to another folder, what does that do?
And if you move it to a new product, moving it to a new folder is just like
Okay.
organization, you know, like these boards, like I could move this board into this folder. Nothing's changed fundamentally. It's just an organization thing. But yeah, if you move, for example, this whole folder to a different product, then any of the special features available in that product will become available to it. So, you know, if you've started working on your donors in work management and you want to bring them into the CRM to get access to emails and activities, for example, you would just come down here and click on CRM. And then as soon as the board has appeared here, it'll look the same, it'll feel the same, but you'll be able to access those added features as soon as it's arrived.
And these are all products that we have, you said, in the nonprofit.
Exactly. Yep, these 4 products down here. Well, we're on CRM, so you see 3. They are all available to you, 10 free seats on each of the products.
Great, thank you.
Cool.
Alex got a question for you. As far as the 2 that you have showing, the potential donor and then active donors, once that potential donor makes a donation, is there a way that it automatically moves it from that orange tables down to the active donor tables?
Yeah. Cool, great question. So at the moment, there is no automation on this board which is doing that already. So we would need to add something, but we absolutely can do. The action here is pretty clear, right? It's going to move from potential to active. I think we all get that. We just need to decide what we would want the trigger to be. So up here is the automation center. And this is where we could build our first automation. Now we could choose from any number of templates. There's tons of great automations that you could just use there, but we can also build something from scratch. I think the most basic way of doing it would be something like this. When the status changes to active, then move the item to the group active. Okay, that's a very basic action. Okay, the trigger is the first part. Something needs to actually change.
Okay.
Then we have the action here. However,
And our pro has already done it. Okay, thank you.
no worries. I'll expand a bit on that just because I wanted to show you a simple example first. This still requires like a manual act, right? We need to change it ourselves to make that work. So a more sophisticated way maybe would be basing it on a change in this column here. Right? We could say, for example, when the donations column changes, move the item to the group active. Okay, so now if a donation is added to a donor who's already in the active group, there's nothing to move. But if there's a change in the donations column, and that meaning by that I mean someone's added a donation to the previous potential group, it'll be moved down as well. So this is maybe a little bit more sophisticated, but the same thing would apply. So yeah, either of those would work depending on what you want the trigger to be.
That's perfect. Thank you.
No worries. You're welcome, Timothy. I can see a couple of questions in the chat. Let me just check out these as well. If I'm working in work management, can I still add multiple donations for donors? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there's not that many features, I'm going to be honest, that are completely unique to each product. All the basic stuff, adding items, connect boards, etc. That's completely fine. You can do that in both work management or CRM. So yeah, no problem there. If you prefer to work in work management for any reason, you can keep it. All good. Indiana,
Alexander,
yeah, you had a follow-up?
I'm sorry that I was the one that asked the question. So really my question is, I have a bunch of people, I have different folders in the work management, and I just don't see where I can add in more gifts. I see, like, I made a thing of total gifts for 2025, but do I have to make columns for each of the gifts in that donor record?
So
That's how I would track it.
I don't know how you built it exactly, but I can tell you
Yeah.
how I would do it and how it's done here.
Okay.
I'd use the connecting board. So we have here our list of donors and we have here our list of donations. And yeah, we've got many coming from the same person. So
That's in the CRM. I'd have to build the donations in the CRM.
This would work exactly the same in work management. This is just two boards that are connected. Nothing specific to the CRM just yet.
Okay, so I can build okay.
And then over here is my connect board column. So here is where I connect the items. So this is where if I click into this little plus, I see the other board. Here I'm looking at a sort of summary of the donations board. And this is where I can choose which of these donations come from this donor. And you can see that Phoenix has 4 different donations that are all connected in here.
Got it. Okay. I'll play around with that. Thank you.
We'll go into this in a lot more depth next week's session. So
Okay.
if that's still a little bit tricky and it's not like urgent in the next 7 days, I'm sure by the end of next week it'll all be crystal clear. But yeah, if you want to play with it on your own, the connect board column is the one that'll allow you to, you can have multiple connections in there, no problem.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
No worries.
That one more time. What did you click to make the connection?
Yeah, sure. So I clicked here in the connect board column, which already exists on this board. But if I wanted to sort of, let's say that Lorenzo made his first donation and I wanted to add it, I would click into this empty space and it's going to show me that other board. It's showing me the donations board. And here's where I can look for the donation that I want to connect to this donor. And then if I find one that is correct, I mean, I actually don't have one from Lorenzo yet, so let's just put one in for now. If I wanted to connect that, I would just check the box here next to his name. And now his name appears here as the donation has been made.
And that will connect the
donation, it's moved him down into the active donors group. Yeah.
and how would that connect it to like the donations? I'm trying to figure out how you connect like the donors and then the donation from one board to another, if that makes sense. Or like if you add a donor, would they appear under the donations, or if you add the donation, would that appear in donor as a new donor? Or
So yeah. I'm trying to think of the best way to answer this question without kind of getting too far ahead of ourselves, because basically the answer is in that column. Exactly what we did there is making the connection, where we connected the donation of Lorenzo to the donor of Lorenzo. That made the connection. But I think it's going to be easier, honestly, if we do it step by step. So let's maybe do this first. Let's upload, put it back up here. Let's upload a list of donors first of all. We'll see how that works, and then we'll move forward step by step, and we'll do some donations, and we'll make those connections, because I think if we're trying to do too much at once, it might just get confusing. So if that's okay with everyone, I've got a list here of existing data. And in this data, we can sort of play around with cleaning things up a little bit before we come to upload it. So here's what I've called bad data. Now, there is no such thing as bad data, right? I mean, if it's correct, it's correct. But when you're going to be uploading data into Monday, and that is really the first step. Before we're connecting it, we need to have the data in there, right? When you're going to be uploading the data, we want to make sure that it's formatted correctly and Monday can interpret it properly. So if your data looks like this, I would definitely recommend spending a little bit of time going through it in your original spreadsheet to improve it. Now, your spreadsheet may be something that you've entered in yourself, or your spreadsheet may be something you've downloaded from your bank or different donation processing apps, right? Several of you mentioned that you're using different apps already, and almost every single piece of software I've ever worked with will allow you to download it as an Excel file or as a CSV, right? As a spreadsheet. Once you've got that spreadsheet, it may look good and may be easy to work with, but it may not be that easy for a different software like Monday to interpret. For example, the way that the upload works is we take a column like column E and we tell it to go to a certain column in Monday. And here we've got donation date. So you might think, all right, I'll tell it to go to the column in my donations board called donation date. Where's the problem? The problem is that in the donation date column, you can only have dates. That's how Monday works. It's how automations can work, because it's a date. Whereas in our column E, we've got all sorts of other information, right? We've got donation amounts, we've got different formats, and then we've got all this stuff about volunteers. Like, it's a mess. I labor the point here just a little bit, I know, but it's because, you know, I worked on a big project with actually a UN agency to put a bunch of their data into Monday. And we spent 6 months, I'm not even exaggerating, cleaning up their data. It took me a day to build a Monday board and upload it. Honestly, that was the easy part, but their stuff was just in a way that was difficult to upload. So ideally, you want to have a board that looks like this, standardized, all your columns are the same, formatting is correct for your donors, and a board that looks like this for your donations. Again, some of these people will appear twice in this board. It's because they've given multiple donations. In this board, they're only going to appear once. And doing that cleanup is often easier in your spreadsheets, right? In Google Sheets or in Excel, than it is to upload it into Monday and then try and make changes. And by the way, if anybody wants some tips and tricks around cleaning up data in a free tool like Google Sheets, I do go through that in the preliminary video. I don't know if anyone or everyone watched it, but when you first signed up for the course, there's like a 30-minute pre-recorded video, which does have some really good content about stuff like this, things to do before you come to working in a new software. So I'll leave it there for now, but check out that video. Then to upload, we need to make sure that what we're looking to upload is in the first position, because it's only going to look at the first tab if you've got more than one sheet. So here we go. I've got my list of donors in the far left-hand side. And I'm now going to download it from Google Sheets, either as a CSV or Excel file. Those are your two options. And then to upload it into Monday, first of all, I need to go to the correct board, right? I separated it out. Here I'm uploading donors. So I'm going to go to the donors board. And on this board, instead of clicking on the new donor button, then I click on the drop down and import donors. I just need then to find the file that I just downloaded and then map the columns. And in most cases, it's pretty straightforward because our data has been cleaned up and organized and it matches more or less with Monday's. There are some columns which don't have the exact same name. So the column on my spreadsheet was called name. And the system is asking me, do you want to put that into the column in Monday called donor? If you look at the spreadsheet here, it's called name. That's perfect. I do want it to be called donor in my board, so that's what I'll choose. If I wanted something different, I could choose it here. I could also skip it if I wanted. Now, these two columns, we don't really have a place for that data in the Monday board. First name and last name. We added that here. It's advised if you have that broken down, because then you can use it for dynamic emails, for example. You can write emails saying, "Hi, John," rather than the more formal, "Hi, John Snow." Now, you could separate those out in Monday, using AI or formulas, but it's more complicated. And genuinely, if you've got data already that you're bringing in, it's sometimes just easier to do it here first. Up to you, but that's my advice. And if you do have columns which don't have a home in Monday already, and you leave it like this, it's going to create new ones for you. So it's going to create for me a plain text column first name and a plain text column last name. Phone, pretty easy. It's going to bring it to the phone column. Email, same story, going to bring it to the email column. So I can say continue. The penultimate step is to decide what to do if certain values appear already in the dashboard, in the database. I know I don't have any duplicates, so I don't need to worry about that. But if I did, I could choose to skip them or eliminate them right here at the point of upload, which is a really good step, especially if you are bringing in donors from a lot of different sources. This could be very helpful to make sure you don't end up with duplicates. Okay, cool. So the first thing it does is it creates for me a new group. And this will be the name of the file. And that's very helpful because it means that your new data doesn't immediately get mixed up with your old data, which can be very confusing. And then it creates new items. And you can see it's come in perfectly, right? We have the list of the donors in our first column. We didn't have any information to come into the status column from this, so it's just left it blank. But I can batch select all of these people and give them status potential. Don't have to do that one by one. Emails come in correctly, phones come in correctly. And then we have a couple of columns that we didn't input any information into. These two columns, remember, are pulling information from the donations board. So we can't upload directly, when I'm uploading information into the donors board, into these columns. And this does stump people a few times. This data, the donation data, needs to be uploaded into the donations board. And once the donations are in the donations board, then we can connect the two together. And that's what we're going to look at next week.
Hey, Alex, this is Timothy. I hate to interrupt. All right, so I just want to make sure I'm clear. So right now we were using an automated system using Zapier to integrate from our GoFundMe and Zapper to move it over here. Okay, so should it be populating the donation page first, and then it will come over to the donor page?
I would actually probably recommend the other way around, because we're hoping that our donations will become very frequent and there'll be a lot of donations coming from the same donor. So the first thing it should do is populate that donor's name in the donors database so that they're definitely there. And we could set it up already so that if they are there already, it's not going to create another version, right? We don't want multiple entries of the same person. And then to add that information into the donations board. And that way, what you'll see next week is we can add a match automation so that as soon as a donation arrives, it can automatically look to see if that person has given before and they exist in the donors board and make the connection for you.
Okay.
But basically, you would want from Zapier the information to come into two places, and only in the donations board it would definitely appear. If it's a new unique donation, it should definitely appear. And coming to the donors board, it should only appear if it's not already there in the list.
Okay. So I just heard it again. So it's the donation page first.
I would recommend the for the donations to match, and we were going to base our match automation on the donations board because that's what's going to change the most. For the donations to match, there needs to be a donor already in the donors board. So if you're doing it automatically, which we're not doing it here yet, we're just doing it manually. But if we're doing it automatically, like you said, using Zapier, then I would recommend the automation to first bring it into the donors board and then bring it into the donations board.
Okay.
I feel like I'm
Confused. Yeah, so I could, yeah, because that's still being set up. And so right now we're getting behind. So manually we'll do the donation page.
That's fine. That's fine.
I mean the donor page, like you were saying.
Either way, if it's manual, it doesn't matter because we're going to look at it manually. And that's why I think it's easiest to start with the manual way. We'll see how that looks. We'll figure out the manual way, and then we can add the automatic way. And we can kind of like build towards this perfect solution. And I also think it's important to say that although we should definitely be like aiming for automatic, right? That's definitely our goal. Everything should be automated 100%. There are some cases where, adding one manual step may genuinely be the fastest way of doing things, right? Rather than breaking our backs to make it 100% automatic. If your existing system was 20% automated and you can build a new system really easily that's 80 or 90% automated, maybe that's okay. And that last 10 or 20% might take you so much time, effort, money to get there that we shouldn't just discount the, maybe one or two small manual steps. So I think that's what we'll see as we move forward here. Okay, let's just finish. I know we have a couple of minutes left, and I know there's still plenty of questions that are unanswered. So let me just finish this upload piece and then see if I can cover some questions. And of course, we do have more time together next week, so don't worry about that. So we uploaded our donors. They're here, and as we said, the donation information isn't yet. We're going to do that next week. Don't worry. What I am going to suggest is that we then move these donors into our group called potential donors. We could, of course, set up an automation for that so that when the status changes, they come in there. We could also set up an automation that every new item automatically moves there. But again, we just did it manually first to make sure that everything's working, and then we'll delete this new empty group. We don't need a group with the name of that file. So now we have a bunch of new donors that we've uploaded. We haven't yet uploaded their donations. We'll do that next. But at the moment, they're there and they're waiting for their donations to be added, and then we can match them. So hopefully that much is clear. What should we do next in our last minute? Let's take a look at the questions. I was going to show you the stuff around emailing your donors and scheduling activities, but we can maybe start with that next week. Maybe we'll try and answer some questions before we are out of time. So let's take a look here. Okay, David, is campaigns included in the nonprofit plan? Monday Campaigns is a new product, and it has a totally different pricing. All the other products are based on seats. Monday Campaigns is based on consumption. It's an email marketing tool, so how many people you send emails to. We're working really hard to get that included. We've just got to figure out a way to get a nonprofit discount added. So at the moment, it's not. You can play around with it. You can pay for it if you want to, but we're working hard. It should be coming soon. We just need to figure out a lot of technical things behind the scenes to add that ability to nonprofits. So no, but coming soon around Monday Campaigns. Okay, cool. Yeah, more people asking about the order of the journey, where should it start, and so on. We can definitely do that next week. Okay, is having name in one column important? Okay, cool. That was kind of answered, but I'll maybe finish off with that. I think it is best to have the first column here called donor be the donor's full name, because this is what you're going to use to identify your donor across the system. And if it's just saying they're John, it could get quite confusing. So I do like having the donor's full name in this column and then having another column for first and last name. It's not critical, right? You could manage with John being in this column and Snow being a second column. You could manage without first and last name being separate, but I think it just gives you the ultimate flexibility. And if you are bringing in data from other places, you can usually set it up that way right from the beginning. But yeah, wouldn't worry too much about that if it's just not possible. All right, my friends, look, I know we have a lot more to cover, and it's great to see people already asking questions and stuff, but that's why we have two parts to this session. So we will wrap things up there for today, I think. But next week, we will begin by looking at ways we can reach out to our donors, different email campaigns, automations, and so on. We'll then upload a list of donations. I'll show you step by step how you can connect them. First, manually, and then we'll show more sophisticated ways of doing it. And then we'll finish off by actually using external software. Like a few people asked about, we mentioned there in the conversation about Zapier, but I can show you some different examples of actually bringing in data directly rather than coming in via a spreadsheet. So stay tuned. There's a lot of great stuff coming up. I hope you're all able to join me next week. We use the same Zoom link. We meet the same time of day, just 1 week from now. So play around with the stuff on your own during the week, of course. And then, yeah, hope you can join me again 7 days from now to crack the rest of the puzzle open and solve how we're going to manage our donors best on Monday. So thanks everyone for joining for today. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.